those of you who have been following the channel for a while know that I've got a Smittybilt 5.6 CFM compressor that I put in the back of the Jeep, man, a couple of years ago. And that thing's still kicking. But I recently purchased a CO2 tank, and I've been using both methods to air up my tires. So today I want to do a little comparison. I want to start with just a quick long-term review on the Smittybilt, give some of the pros and cons of that thing. I think it's one of the best value compressors out there. And then talk about CO2 and some of the differences and pros and cons there. And then at the end, we're going to turn on the stopwatch and see how fast those two methods fill up these 37s. Hey everybody, welcome to 4x-Trail. I'm Caleb, and today we're talking CO2 versus an onboard compressor. I think this is going to be a good video, but if you're watching this and you're not yet subscribed, thanks in advance for just hitting that subscribe button. You can do it right now. It's a free way for you to get great content that'll hopefully inspire you on your next adventure. So thanks in advance for that. All right, let's dive into this video. We're going to start off in the back of the Jeep looking at that Smittybilt compressor and just sharing some quick pros and cons of this 5.6 CFM Smittybilt. Well, I've had this Smittybilt 5.6 CFM compressor in the back of the Jeep for a couple of years now. And after using it for that amount of time, I definitely have some pros and cons, and I want to share those quickly with you. Overall, I really like this compressor, but there are some things that I don't like as well. But let's start with the positives. The price point, first of all. At this price, I don't think this compressor is going to be beat, even beyond this price. It punches above its weight, which is great if you're looking for like a backup compressor to throw in the back of your rig, or if you're just starting out and you don't want to spend a lot of money. I'll leave a link to this exact compressor below for you to check out. It is the 5.6 CFM. Now, Smittybilt offers this compressor in a lower flow rate, 2 point something. It's going to give you about half the performance. So you're going to want the 5.6 CFM, that's cubic feet per minute, version of this thing. So again, I'll leave a link below. But yeah, price point would be the first one. The second one would be the performance. This thing keeps up with my buddy's twin ARB. I think it punches above its weight. And you'll see in a second here, compared to CO2, just how quickly it fills up my 37s. So yeah, it's a good performing unit. And then thirdly would be just the longevity. I've had this thing for a couple of years now, and it's still kicking. So I think it's a pretty decent compressor, especially for the money. So big fan of this thing. I've chosen to mount this compressor in a bit of an unconventional way. I'll leave a link to a video that I've done on that in the description for you to check out later if you're interested. Well, I definitely forgot to record the negatives of the compressor, and so here's that list. The noise, first of all, compressors don't sound great anyway, but this one definitely is up there with the worst of them. Also, the hose failed a short while back near the fitting. At the end of it, developed a little hole. I was able just to snip the hose and reattach the fitting, and it's been fine ever since. And then the gauge, it doesn't give you readings on the fly. You have to turn off the compressor and then go back to the tire and check the gauge, and then go back and turn the compressor back on if you need to continue airing up. I'm not going to do that, so I just disconnect it at the tire and use my separate tire gauge. Also, the fittings developed a little bit of surface rust on the inside. I'll show you that here in a minute. But yeah, that's my list of negatives. Well, I recently purchased a 10-pound CO2 tank just to use when I'm in a hurry and I don't want to mess with the compressor or whatever. But after using it for 6 months, CO2 is great, but there's also some drawbacks. So I want to share some of those really quickly with you. First of all, the size really does count. I've just got a 10-pounder and it doesn't last me very long. Depending on the ambient temperature when you're getting your tank refilled, it affects how many tires you'll get out of it. So if I'm having mine filled when the ambient's around 70 or 80, I can get maybe 12 tires out of my 10-pound. That's my 37s airing up from 15 PSI to 30 PSI. But if I get it filled in the summer, like here in Phoenix when it's over 100, I might only get 8 tires out of it. Those are rough numbers, but just to give you an idea, it's only 2 times of going off-road, and I've got to go get that thing refilled again. And there's not a lot of places around here that fill them, so it can be kind of a hassle. So I recommend 15 or 20 pounds for sure. But then you run into the size of it. Like where do you store the thing? Like, where do you put it in your Jeep? I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of space when we're all in here, especially going as a family. So the CO2 tank, a lot of times, if you have a compressor, it's stored somewhere, it's mounted somewhere out of the way. But with the CO2 tank, you've got to find a place to put that thing, right? So the larger the tank, the more space it takes up. So that's another thing to consider. But the pros of CO2 are obvious. It is super fast. And speaking of, let's go ahead and do a comparison between my Smittybilt 5.6 compressor and my Smittybilt 10-pound CO2 tank. While my tire deflator gets my tire air down there, I want to say I'm only airing down to 15. If I do a harder trail, I may go to 12, but typically without bead locks, I go to 15. And then I'll be airing back up to 30. Oh, there it goes, it shut off. So we're gonna verify it's at 15, and then we're gonna be measuring how fast the CO2 tank and the Smittybilt compressor fill the tire from 15 up to 30 PSI, and these are 37-inch tires. All right, let's verify. 15 PSI on the dot. All right, that's a full CO2 tank right there. And neither the CO2 tank nor the compressor have a built-in gauge that works on the fly. So I'm gonna be setting a flat 25-second timer, and we're gonna see how far each of these get the tire inflated in 25 seconds. All right, how fast will this fill it up? Here we go. Got my timer going. 25 seconds. All right, we're getting close. About 5 seconds left. 3, 2, 1. All right, let's get the gauge. All right, moment of truth. 27 on the dot. Not quite to 30, but 27 PSI in 25 seconds. Let's compare that against the compressor. All right, getting my hose connected here. I'll show you guys what I mean by that surface rust. You can see just a little bit of rust on there, but nothing too bad. All right, I've got the hose connected here. I've got the Jeep running because this is hardwired to the battery. So they recommend that. It's connected up. We're gonna start the timer here and hit go on this compressor at the same time. Let's see how fast this thing can fill up this 37. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Five seconds. Okay, now I know this is not going to be a 27 PSI, which is what the CO2 did in 25 seconds, but we're going to measure it, and then I'm going to turn the timer and compressor back on and see how long it takes to hit that 27 mark. All right, we're at 18 to 19 PSI. So I'm going to fire that compressor back up, see how long it takes to get to 27. 2, 1. I'm just going to use my best judgment on how long that thing's going to be to get to 27, just based on how long I've been using this compressor, and then I'll try to stop the timer and the compressor when I think it's at 27, and we'll see how close I am. All right, I stopped the compressor and the timer when I felt like it was about 27 PSI, just based on how many times I've used this compressor to air these tires up. So a minute 11 plus 25, what is that? A minute 36, right? So a minute 36 versus 25 seconds. Let's see if I hit it at 27 PSI, and we'll know the difference that it takes to fill up this tire between CO2 and the Smittybilt compressor. All right, moment of truth. I was real quick to disconnect this when I was unscrewing it, so I lost minimal air. Let's see what this gauge is at. Oh, come on. You guys are just gonna take my word for it that I did not rig this. I hit it about on the money, look at that. So 27 PSI, a minute 36 versus 27 PSI for the CO2 to get there, it was only 25 seconds. So there is a difference in this compressor and CO2. but you can see it's not like ages, right? So I still am a fan of having an onboard compressor because it just allows you to have hard mounted backup in case you forget your CO2 tank. Or the other day I saw someone on the side of the road that needed they had a flat tire, and I was able to pull over and get them back on the road because I had an onboard compressor. So pros and cons to both. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. I'll leave a link to the Smittybilt compressor below for you to check out if you're interested. I'd love to hear what type of setup you're running for onboard air and how you like it. You can let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.